Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and I'm the owner, creator, and coach for Believe in Better Finances. So for today's video topic, I'm going to be speaking specifically to those of you in your 30s like I am. But don't worry, if you are in your 20s, I made a video specifically on financial goals for your 20s as of last week. So feel free to go back and check out that video. And if you're in your 40s or later, don't worry, this is a series by decades for financial goal setting. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned to my next couple of videos coming up. But for those of you in your 30s, this video is for you. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so tip number one. This is probably one of my most important tips that I can give to anyone, but especially those of you in your 30s, because it can drastically affect your ability to make progress on the following things that I'm about to mention a little bit later. So tip number one is to start paying off any non-mortgage related debt. Now, that would be things like your car loans, your credit cards, your student loans. If you've got personal loans, anything like that that's outside of your mortgage, you definitely want to make a plan for that and start paying that money back and get out of the habit of having to make monthly payments to lenders and things of that nature. Again, when I've mentioned this in other videos, as those of you who have followed along with my other videos know, I'm very anti-debt. When you're in debt, it's really hard to be able to do other things, financially speaking, setting financial goals and things like that when you're focused on spending so much of your money on monthly payments versus being able to take that money and invest towards other things like financial goals or retirement savings. So tip number one would be start to make a plan to get all of your non-mortgage related debt paid off and as quickly as you can. My next tip is going to be you want to have, and this is just kind of a general rule, obviously if you can have more than this, the better, but you want to have at least 1 times your annual salary saved for in retirement. Now, if you're in your early 30s, I would say this is a really good goal to shoot towards or work towards. If you're a little bit behind, again, going back to tip number one, if you're able to pay off some debt, that will free up a lot of cash flow in your budget to be able to increase your retirement contributions. So look into being able to do those kind of things. If you don't have a lot of cash flow in your budget, maybe now is the time that you want to start reevaluating your career path. What can you do to bring in more income? Is it a second job? Is it a completely new job altogether? Same industry, different industry? Just start thinking long-term about your career moves and what can help boost your income so that way you can hit those retirement savings goals. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3. So if you are a parent and you're not already doing so, I would definitely recommend that you start saving for your children's college funds. So as I mentioned in my 20s video, again, because I know a lot of people in their 20s have kids, they start their families. So if you are not yet saving for your kids' college funds, I would definitely recommend you do so as soon as possible. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to retirement. The sooner you can start saving for your retirement needs, the better you are going to be long term because you've got the advantage of time and compound interest. The same rule applies for college savings. So again, you want to start saving for your kids' college funds when they're little, practically when they're babies if possible. So that way you've got 16 to 18 years of saving and compound interest. One of the things, as I mentioned previously in my video, that's really frustrating for me is for those that, they almost wait until they're practically in high school before they really even start to think about how am I going to help my kids pay for college if they want to. So again, the sooner you can start on that, again, teenagers can be very expensive. They get to that age where they're going to need a vehicle, so you may want to help them pay for a vehicle. So having the college savings part already completed and out of the way will really set yourself up for long-term financial success when it comes to that area. So that's one thing I would definitely say. If you don't have that already in place, start looking into options. I actually have a video in some of my previous videos that I did that's all about college savings and what types of accounts are best for putting money in for the purpose of saving money for future college expenses. The next one's going to be if you are a parent, and really honestly, if you're not already a parent, you want to have some life insurance in place. How much life insurance should you have? The general rule of thumb is you want at least 10 times your annual salary. So if you make $50,000 a year, times that by 10, so you're going to need at least $500,000 in life insurance. Now, I know a lot of people who work out in the public, their employers do provide some life insurance, but oftentimes people don't think about it, and really a lot of times it's not enough with what the employers provide. They provide you a little, but it's not really that much. And especially if you have a family, you definitely want to think about getting, again, closer to that 10 times your annual salary mark. So for example, my husband's employer, they provide him 1 times his annual salary up to $50,000. So if you think about that, $50,000, well, that would be a tremendous blessing. But if, God forbid, I had to worry about burying my husband, the burial expenses alone would probably eat up over half of that amount of money. So that wouldn't, that wouldn't worry about paying off our house or anything like that. So if I had children plus me, that could be a very big financial burden put on my plate. So in my case, my employer is a lot more generous, and more generous than the norm when it comes to employers. They provide 6 times my annual salary up to $250,000, which is amazingly generous. I don't know about you guys. If you guys work somewhere where they provide life insurance, comment below on how much you have. I'd be curious to see kind of what people's employers are paying out nowadays. But even still, even though it's just my husband and I, one of the things that we talked about was we wanted to make sure that we gave each other peace of mind that, again, God forbid something happens to us, we will be okay. We'll be able to cover the burial expenses and all that comes with that. We'll be able to pay our house off if we needed to, and we'll have that money available if that's what we wanted to do, and be comfortable where we're not going to be stressed out trying to figure out how to make ends meet, plus trying to grieve in the process. So what we did was we did some research. We reached out to a couple providers that offer life insurance. We do recommend getting term life insurance. We looked at a 30-year policy, and just to be very honest, it's very affordable. It's going to look at several factors though. It's going to look at how old you are, your current condition, and so in my case, when I got my life insurance, I was a little bit overweight, so my premiums were slightly higher than my husband's, and I also have in my family, on my mom's side, a kind of a history of heart disease. And so they look at all of that whenever you're, oftentimes applying for life insurance and things like that when you're getting quotes. But even still, for mine and my husband's, his is like around $41, mine is around $46 a month. So yes, that is a lot of money. It's $100 a month, but the return that we would get on it, to me, it's worth the peace of mind. It's like car insurance or mortgage insurance for your house. It's there just in case something awful happens. You'll be okay. You won't have to stress over it or deplete your savings and have nothing left over. So definitely recommend looking into getting some life insurance in addition to maybe what your company already provides. If your employer doesn't provide anything, or if you're self-employed, that's even more so to start looking into that. So again, it was a very easy process. We just had to do a couple things, fill out a couple forms, and then just start making the monthly payments on having that life insurance premium. But again, very well worth it. I don't regret doing that. So that's one tip I would definitely recommend doing. My next one, again, not to be too doom and gloom here, but talking about life insurance, that kind of brings me to my next point is, if you're in your 30s and you don't already have a will in place, now is the time to get one. Even more so if you have a family with children. Again, we do not, but having a will in place, it just helps, again, make the transition easier on family members. If you were to pass away, they'll know what your last wishes are, down to what songs you want, what kind of funeral would you want to have. I mean, just having all those details worked out in advance. I know a lot of people don't want to think about that, but I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever experienced a loss in your family that's really close to you, I've experienced a couple of these, and in both occasions, the person that passed away did not have a will in place, and it left a major burden on their children that was trying to figure out what to do. It's already, in both cases, it was, to be honest, just quite of a shock, and so it's already hard enough just to grieve the sudden loss, on top of trying to figure out where do we want to have the funeral, what kind of music do we want to have, just everything. What happens to their belongings, how do things get divided up. It creates a lot of family stress and turmoil in some occasions for a lot of people out there. So again, just providing that great gift of having a will in place. You definitely want to look at medical power of attorneys, how your finances would be handled, who's going to take care of that kind of stuff, depending on the situation. So again, seek professional help when it comes to that. There's a lot of resources online. One thing that my employer provides, and a lot of you, if you work out in the public, you probably heard of EAP, the Employer Assistance Program. They actually offer a service where you can download a free will. It's a basic template, but nonetheless, it's at least something to work off of. And then you just fill in the blanks. So, for example, if I were put on life support and in my will, I can state how long that I personally want to be on life support before my family decides to take me off. So that would be the last thing I would want my husband or my parents having to decide how long to keep me on or how long to not. And so I've thought over that decision, and I've made that decision and put it on paper in writing, so that way my parents and my husband don't have to fret over that decision or have any regrets later on for a decision that they made on my behalf, because I've never told them what my wishes would be. So having those things in place are really, really important. So if you don't have a will, take a little bit of time, maybe reach out to your HR person at work to see if they, again, have a program like the EAP where you can just start there, or take steps even further and seek professional assistance in getting one drawn up for you. So moving to a little bit more pleasant subject, the next tip I would have is setting up an emergency fund. So I mentioned this in your 20s. If you're going through school or just getting started, you want to have at least a starter emergency fund of a couple $1,000s. But as you start getting into your 30s, you definitely want to think about fully funding an emergency fund that you already have in place. So if it's not at least 3 months of living expenses, that would be a great financial goal to set for yourself, is to start shooting towards saving and padding that account at least with 3 months to up to 6 months of living expenses. Right now, there's so many things going on in the economy with job loss, depending on the industries that you're in. And then there's oftentimes just many jobs where there are highs and lows. Right now I think about, here in Texas, the oil and gas industry has seen major changes. So a lot of people are losing their jobs. A couple years ago, when the economy tanked and the housing market went bust, the realtors and everybody in the mortgage industry was starting to suffer. So it's likely to happen to all of us. It's just a matter of time. So the more you can do to be prepared, again, the less it will hopefully affect your finances in a negative way by being prepared. So that's one really good tip. Now, when you set up an emergency fund, you do not want this money invested in the stock market or anything like that. You want to have it in a FDIC or NCUA, which is the National Credit Union Administration, or the FDIC for banks, insured savings account. I know that doesn't earn a lot of interest, but again, your emergency fund is not to make you money. It's there to offer kind of insurance type protection for your life. So that way, again, something bad happens, you have easy access to pull that money out. You're not going to get hit with the penalty because it's locked up in a CD or tied up in the stock market or something like that. Your emergency money is just simple money to have quick and easy access when it's a true emergency only. The next one I would recommend thinking about setting a financial goal in your 30s is, and again, this can vary depending on family to family or individual to individual, is what are your housing plans the next 10 years? So maybe you're currently in your starter home, you've started a family, so you're needing more room. Maybe in the next few years, that's the time that you want to buy or move up in house. So again, thinking about how much house do you want to buy? What do houses cost in your area? What kind of down payment would you want to have? Obviously, if you could shoot for at least 20%, so that way you can avoid having to pay private mortgage insurance, that's great. You'll have equity in your home. You won't have to pay that extra couple $100s on your mortgage payment every month by not having PMI. So think about those things and start planning for it now, so that way when that time comes, you're ready. Or maybe it's your first home purchase. So start doing research if that's a big goal for yourself, is to own your own place. Start researching what areas you'd want to buy in, what steps you need to do to get yourself financially ready for purchasing your first home. And then my last tip is just kind of a general tip, but a very good thing, is to start reading up on financial planning. Again, anything that you can do to educate yourself as a consumer to make better, more well-informed financial decisions, the better off you will be. So again, start looking into financial planning. Maybe speak to a certified financial planner, somebody who can actually walk through and periodically double check your progress. That's something my husband and I do. We actually go seek a certified financial planner at our credit union. We sit down, we show him all of our retirement forms, our retirement accounts where it shows our statements and how much money we have, how we're invested. That way he just double checks and makes sure everything's performing the way we want it to, and just everything's aligning up the way we want to as far as long-term goals like retirement and other things. So those are my tips for today. I hope you found them very informative and valuable. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up, and then also be sure and subscribe. This is something I've really been enjoying doing. I'm working really hard to further develop my channel. So I'm going to finish out these series by decades, and then I will continue to fill in different video topics. So for those of you watching, if you have any specific requests, or maybe you have financial questions, again, please try to keep them as generic in nature as possible, and I would love to address your questions and make future video topics on those. So without that being said, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.